Hello and welcome. I'm Lindsay, the National Educator for 𝐬𝐮𝐬, and I'm here today to talk with our guest for today is Dr. Dr. Weiss from Global Medical. He is the founder and executive director of this incredible organization. And I just wanted to welcome you today. Thank you, Dr. Weiss.
Thanks for having me.
So can you tell us a little bit about your organization?
Sure. We were kind of a spin-off of a bigger organization called Artists International Artists Research. Artists was generated to research why terrorism occurs. And it's staffed with people up for Nobel laureates. It's, ex-senators, congressmen, a lot of people who want to try and achieve peace, but with a commitment to research as to why war occurs, why intractable conflict occurs, why in my whole life, Israel's been in conflict and the Kurdish areas have been in conflict, and you still have problems in Myanmar. Why are these things going on? What are the roots of these things? And I was named a senior fellow in that organization, started having meetings all around the world, and I realized that the research they were doing didn't connect really into holistic, effective models. I thought there was a gap. They would take ISIS members and do MRIs of their brain while they were describing terrorism events. That didn't really correlate. And so what I wanted to do is go into the field and start research as to, what's going on with their brain chemistries. Are they inflamed? Can they make rational decisions? Could you sit with somebody who is thinking of being a terrorist and have a rational conversation with them? And when people have systemic inflammation in their brain and their body, their ability to reason disappears. So what that did is that research grew into designing clinics to make that type of research available. So for Global Medical, when we spun it out, it was originally called Peace Possible because it was more of, just generating medical centers and conflict zones and forming research. But Global Medical just took on the total project of diagnosing, treating, and reversing. Now, many charities diagnose, many of them will treat, but they don't reverse. So, for example, when we are in conflict zones and there's trauma and wounded, we're finding about their sleep patterns, their anxiety patterns, all of those, and bringing in natural anti-inflammatories, amino acids, right then to rebalance their central nervous systems. So now, when they're making a decision of what they're going to do with their life, they can do it with clarity and focus. We can't reverse somebody that's going to do bad things. They're making bad choices. But the hope is that if they have a rational mind, they see the alternatives. They see that, a child who doesn't believe in what I do shouldn't be executed. Now, for us, our norms are like this, of course. But for somebody who's raised that way, they can't process their way out of that. And so when we're talking about reversing, we're talking, let's take another case of a Yazidi girl who was repeatedly abused and raped by ISIS members, being able to go to college. I mean, think about how much PTSD they're going through, how much conflict. In the war afterwards, they're no longer getting raped, but it doesn't mean they're not being abused. So that's continuing and going on and going on. But that's the reversing piece. I literally had a patient in a Dahuk refugee camp who made it to Germany, helped focus war crimes trials, and won a Nobel Prize named Nadia Murad. Now, I mean, that stuff can be duplicated. She had some wind at her back. She had, a lawyer named Amal Clooney, who's the wife of, George Clooney, at her back to do these things. So she had that support. But what are the other 99.9%? And so we can take these folks that we think are broken because of all the bad things that happened to them. We can turn them around, and they can be our best successes. They can say to others that I've been where you're at. You don't have to stay there. You can go to school. You can sit down and think, and you don't have to live in fear. You can sleep through the night. You can have a healthy relationship with a man after this, or a woman, or whatever it is. And so Global Medical was designed just for that, to not just diagnose and treat, but truly reverse from the definition of a holistic person. like a real recovery and getting your life back. So that's my quick speech. You don't want my long one.
Oh my gosh, that's so inspiring. And you're giving so much hope and another chance. And also you're able to model it by having success stories. I love to hear this.
Especially these young women that came out of ISIS, they're inspiring.
Mm.
You know, once you start to get them moving a little direction, they just take it over, and they're the teachers now. I had one of my patients who, after 3 years of going back and forth to Iraq, she came up to me and said, perfect English, "I always wanted to thank you for being there when I was rescued." And I said, well, it's no problem. It's what I do. She goes, you know, I'm going to get A's in high school, and I'm going to get A's in American high school, because a friend of mine enrolled her in a high school in Dallas. She goes, I'm getting straight A's in both the Kurdish high school and the American one. Someone's going to pay me to go to college. They're going to pay me to get a PhD. Then I'm going to come back to Iraq and I'm going to fix it. And she goes, the fundamental problem with Iraq is there is no woman running it. A man can't fix it. It's got to be. And I was like, I can't argue with you. I can't argue with you. It's dominated that I can't argue with you, but that empowerment, you know, I don't bill there. I'm not a doctor there who bills insurance or does whatever, but I get that. And they inspire me. I leave after working in refugee camps or whatever, I come home and I can't sleep at night. I'm wired. I'm like when people go rest on a beach for 2 weeks. For me, it's sweating and working in refugee camps. It's fantastic.
Amazing. So how did this all kind of begin? I mean, you touched on it, but how did you really get your footing in working internationally this way?
So a friend of mine gave me some advice when I was launching Beast Possible. He said, just go there. Mm-hmm. Just go there, do a scouting trip. Mm-hmm. Don't sit there and work on logistics all the time. And the Artists International Artist Research with Dr. Rich Davis and you know, we have a gentleman who's in the House of Lords. You know, these connections that I have, Scott Atran, Dr. Atran, all these folks, you know, they're like, we'll get you all the connections and stuff you want. You've got that gift. Go there, have the meetings, do all that stuff. And I went there and I did none of it. I got there and I was set up to work in a big refugee area. And I bumped into a guy who owned a charity who said, we go to areas where there are no refugee camps, where there isn't doctors. And I was like, I want to go with you. And so I called Rich and I said, and Rich is like, that's why you go there. So Rich and Scott, all these guys, you know, John, who's in the household, they're all like, that's why you go there. Go do that. Look, these big refugee camps have plenty of doctors. You don't need to go there. Okay. And so they were all excited for me. And over the next 2 weeks, I saw probably 100 to 110 people a day. I was walking into Iraqi pharmacies, telling them who I was. They were giving me everything at cost, which is really low there. Not like American drug prices, like at cost everywhere but America prices, which are really, really cheap. So I was reloading on. I had shipped over more nutritional supplements the companies had donated, and I literally went on it. And I literally was driving around Iraq. And I was in one place where you saw a bunch of burning tires at the bottom of the hill, and that's where ISIS was. And I have a big clinic going with 110 people in line. And I experienced it. And after that, it's like a bug, it catches you. You know, after that, I was in, and I realized my power in the situation and my strength in the situation of what I could do and what a holistic model can do in that zone. You know, yeah, I did put in chest tubes and I did, you know, some gunshot stabilization while, you know, people are transferred, but that's the small part of what's going on. It's everything else that's what cripples societies. It's the lack of empathy. It's the chronic infections. It's all of that stuff that stalls it and makes it sit there. Every child who's gotten an antibiotic has gotten a probiotic. So I'm not leaving them vulnerable to other infection. I'm leaving them protected. So, you know, I kept doing those models. So after that is when I was glad I spun everything off. John Alderdice, who's in the House of Lords at UK, I remember he sent me this handwritten letter, although, you know, from in the House of Lords stationery, said, you did it. You just went there and you did it. And that's what you do. For anybody out there that's considering stuff, just go do it. Don't overthink it. Don't say, well, this and this and this. And this. Just go there and do it. You'll be glad you did.
Amazing. amazing to see what you've accomplished through just going there and doing it, and now where you are today.
It's going well. Accomplished. It's accomplished is a funny thing for a nonprofit, because there should be an end one day. And, since I've started this, the world has become more violent. So I'm not really accomplishing anything. I just hope that the areas that I'm in are better, and that's where it's got to start, locally on the ground there.
Right.
Accomplish is a big word.
When I hear your stories about the young women that come back to make a difference for their countries and in the way through their experience with you and what they've accomplished too, that's kind of what I guess I'm talking about, like how it evolved that way.
That's fair. You're 100% right about that. Because, you're an educator.
Mm-hmm.
You win one person at a time. When you have the right message, when you're talking about healthy ways to take care of your body, it's the right message. No chemicals, it's the right message, right? When you're talking about that and somebody's able to connect on that, and that is going to do a chain of events in their life that they're better, it's a great feeling. It is. And I get to do that in mass. So I'm really the lucky one.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So what is your vision going forward? Like, do you have any projects that you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, it's in Iraq and the Laos, Thailand border. There's a lot of work for me to do right now. And then probably working in the Myanmar borders. So I go where there's conflict zones, right? And so that's where I'm trying to do my best work and solve those conflicts. On the way over the last 2 years, as we've been going through our stuff, I also picked up kind of an executive master's from Harvard's Kennedy School. So I got to learn about policymakers and leadership around worldwide. So I'll be adding in discussions with leadership about how to incorporate these models into all of their refugee areas. So that's going to be exciting for me. The connections that I have through Harvard and Lord Alderdice and Rich Davis, I can bring those and have those high-level meetings now about real change in the way that we're approaching these things. And that's going to apply to a bunch of orphanages along the Laos-Thailand border, where these are all rescued sex workers. The youngest are 4 years old. Right? This. And she's a little girl. She's playing with the Disney thing. 4 to 18. And so there's a bunch of orphanages there. That's a great place because they're completely out of the fray. They're out of Bangkok, they're all that stuff. The Thailand country, their government's been playing some games about exactly how much they're going to let me do, but they usually don't want to offend me too much. We're going to apply what we're doing there in mass. We have 116 girls right now that we are now a second year in a research study with, of looking at their brain chemistries and how they're doing at school. Are they sleeping at night? And doing that, we're making huge progress. It's unbelievable. Their teachers are like, their grades are going up. They're sleeping through the night. The night years are going away, all that stuff. I just got to get the sugar away from them. They want too much of sugar, just like we do. I gotta get that sugar out of their brains a little bit. Recently, I have an immediate need in 𝐷𝐭. 𝐷𝐭 is an area in northern Iraq, and it's a real stable area. Lots and lots of different refugee areas, not really camps. So they've been kind of underserved. The 𝐬𝐭𝐧𝐿𝐵s there. It's kind of a lesser known group. This is nothing new to them to live as refugees. For the 𝐬𝐭𝐧𝐿s, this is the 6th Holocaust that they have gone through in the several 1,000 years of their religion. So ISIS was just the latest, but one of the major camps in 𝐷𝐭 just burnt down. And so that, in a country with so little resources and all that, that's going to lead to big problems. So we have money going in, we have boots on the ground, docs are taking care of the burns, all that stuff. The hospitals have been stabilized, but I just need to go there now because all of that PTSD and everything that these refugees have gone through is now fired right back. They have, the little that they had a decent tent or a shelter box, a little bit of electricity, a few clothes, some school books. That's all gone again. And so we had an emergency meeting of the minds. Nobody really thinks of 𝐷𝐭, Iraq, when they hear of charities, right? They think of surgeries and stuff like that. So we brought that in, and now we're flooding it with aid. And then I'll go in there first or second week of July and see what we can do, and see where those needs are. And I'll get to meet with leadership, which will be nice. Iraqi leadership is a definitely interesting group.
That's amazing. So I guess it sounds like when you are going into these, places, you experience some challenges. What are the biggest challenges you experience when you go into work with different countries?
Airports, my 9 bags of supplies.
Mm.
Each one of these countries has different laws. Nobody knows the laws about what I can bring in, what I can bring out. So there's a lot of hustling, sometimes bribing, getting them through the airports. Africa, like some of the Western Africa and Central Africas are easy. It's always a standard bribe. I was like, well, I don't know, and if it cost me about $20 to take it out, and so that's kind of easier. The Asian countries, they'll just take stuff, and so that the airports and getting supplies in are real tricky. If you ship them in, then you've got to try and avoid the tariffs, and it'll just sit in their holding areas forever and get stolen. So getting supplies in is very, very tricky for me, but I've gotten pretty good at it. I'd say getting the trust of the people on the ground, it has to be earned, and it takes time. And for the 𝐬𝐮𝐬 folks, luckily I was there with a group that really knew them well initially. I was a doc. It took me about 3 years before, 3 years of coming there for them to, really let me treat them and explain to them what I can do. So I think just the logistics of getting supplies into these regions, most of them have a lot of problems with corruption, and that affects me. And then just getting trust and earning trust. It's something I think just being a doctor that hopefully we reflex to on our good days when we're not frustrated and tired and grumpy. And we do that. So far that's gone really well for me. My Facebook is bizarre. I have guys in Baghdad, and I have guys in Laos, and I have guys over there and all that stuff. In Beirut, I worked at American University there for a bit, did some teaching in the middle of a whole bunch of mess in Beirut. And so when I go into Israel, they're always like, what are you doing in Beirut in Iraq? It's always very interesting because I'll go, and I'm having some meetings in Gaza probably over the summer to see what we can do for a peace policy. I've introduced a peace plan through a third party, and we'll see if either of the parties are interested in that. So it'll be a busy summer.
Wow, that's a lot. Do you have to have interpreters working with you, or are you able to?
Yeah, most of the time. And even if they say they speak it, sometimes they really don't. And you don't want to say, hey, you stink in English, because they speak 5 languages, just not English, everybody in the world. So yeah, I usually have an interpreter, and they just stay with us the whole time, because sometimes the interpreters are most valuable at hotels and restaurants, and just, getting your needs across and saying, I want a room with air conditioning, and do you have one? That's a really great thing after it's been hot and you're sweating all day. And I don't care about a hot shower. I just want, is there cool air in that one? That kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll use interpreters, and then depending on the country, we'll have like an escort that knows the intelligence services in delay. Like in northern Iraq, you'll have stops. You'll have a PMU stop, and that's like the Iranian-based militia. Then the next block, you're going to have an Iraqi army, stop, and then the next one you're going to have the Kurdish. Then the next one you might have a 𝐬𝐮𝐬 stop. So somebody has, those are 2 or 3 different languages and cultures. And so luckily I've gotten some great people. Like people will say, I don't want your money. I just want your, thank you for coming here to work here. And I've been real lucky. Most of them will take money. Most of them, it's their job. But it's specifically like Jordan, Syrian border areas. You'll just get a lot of people wanting to volunteer and not take money. They consider it a little bit of an insult. You flew all the way here. You left your family to come here and work. And so you really meet great people, phenomenal people.
I know there's an element of hospitality in many countries too, where they're grateful and they want to make you feel welcome.
Oh yeah. I remember I was working in Jordan, and it was Ramadan, and I was right on the Syrian border with the refugees pouring out. And I got back, I worked like 3 days in a row, and I had, listen, I woke up and I'm an idiot. There's no food till 8 o'clock, right about 8 o'clock, it's boom, right? And so I went downstairs, and I just, got a couple bottles of water, which they're like, okay, we're going to do this, but you can't pay me. I'm going to leave them there, because it really violates, their rules there. And right at 8 o'clock, knock, 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 guy comes in with trays of food. And I'm like, what is that? He goes, well, I know you're not accustomed to our culture and stuff. So I went there, and right at 8 o'clock, he didn't eat. He got a bunch of food to go and brought it to me. And he goes, you've been working so hard and now you're hungry all day and all that. So I wanted you to have this. And I'm like, well, what do I owe you? He's like, money? No, no, you're hungry. That's why I'm getting you this. And just, this is a 22-year-old kid who's just, assisting in refugee camps, and he's hungrier than I am, and so those kinds of stories are every day. We remember that the majority of the world wants to solve these things. We just have to convince the minority of what to do.
Right. When you say those, that offering you the food when he was hungry, that just melts my heart. It
was so good. It was, the guy had like prayed over it. It's Ramadan, it was just fresh. It was all just made. So it's just really hungry, and it's really good. That's the things. And so, and I was like, do you want to stay and eat? He's like, no, I got to go with my family and eat. So I was like, okay. And I ate it all. I know I'm not American.
Food is such a symbol of love to every culture, really. And so it is sort of such a generous offering, and almost like showing you gratitude for what you're doing too.
But I do have a story about 𝐬𝐬𝐫𝐲 I'd like to share.
Oh, sure, of course.
So I'm so bad with products. You have the boxes with multiple things in them. One's rose, and one's what
the kits. Yes, our ritual kits.
One of the places I like to work is Senegal, and they have these charities that are set up, and they're really smartly set up. They'll be they have a bunch of different houses, and this is Austria sponsors this, or USA or Canada, all this. And in the house will be a mother, and that's her job. She lives there. And then there's an aunt. She's kind of a mother in training for all those, right? And they'll have, the youngest will be an infant, the oldest will be 18, and they'll have like 12 to 13 children in each house. And what's great about it is the mother and aunt are there their whole lives. They have two parents their whole lives. In Senegal, the going to college rate's about 40%. There's a very difficult test. I looked at it. You have to know English. Also have to go to college. And I looked at it. There's no way I would have passed this in high school. It's got some, real advanced mathematics, some early calculus in there. If you're going to go to college, they'll cover it, but you got to be top kid. So it's about 40%, 35% for all Senegal. It's over 75% of the charities that go there. But anyway, these mothers, it's Africa. That sun's just beating on them, very dark skin, and they use like Vaseline on their skin just to protect it. And I'm like, oh God, that's terrible. So I gave each of the mothers one of those kits. I had two of them I brought. I don't even know why I decided I needed to schlep them in my personal luggage because I had no room in my supplies. You just, do this. And I gave each one of them there. The next day I come back, and they were just hugging me like, that is the best stuff. And they're all like sitting there going, ooh, I'm like a movie star, and all this stuff. But it wasn't just how they felt. It was the message of 𝐬𝐬𝐫𝐲, of myself. Everybody's there to help the kids. Somebody cared about the moms and the aunts. Right. And so, and I don't know if they were more beautiful than they ever could be because of the way they live their lives. Like, these women don't have their own children and families. This is what they do. It's almost like how a nun will take a vow. They do this, but they were smiling, and they were talking about Hollywood, and they looked on the internet, and they're like, do I look like Michelle Pfeiffer? They're saying that in French, because they speak French and Wolof, the two languages that are spoken fluently there. But they just had a ball. But that message that somebody from Washington State cared enough to help them get that, and wanted to say thank you for creating solutions of children, not problems. They're going to create adults that are solutions to the world, not problems to the world. And it was really cool. And you provided that moment, and I'm very, very appreciative. It is. And they really hug you. They're not fooling around, man. It's, And so I'm really appreciative of 𝐬𝐬𝐫𝐲 for doing that.
Oh, thank you for making that happen. We appreciate you so much as well. So Dr. Weiss, is there anything else you want to share about your organization and about your mission?
No, I think you let me talk as much as I could. I just think that what I've learned, it taught me how to be a better doctor about not just diagnosing and treating, but reversing. Meaning that getting them back is in the best way as if it never happened. And we leave too many people just after treatment. We say, well, the infection's gone or this is gone, but they're not reversed. And if that message interests you and you think that we're unique enough, we're at 𝐺medical.org, and we will always accept donations, whether it's supplies or anything else like that. And, as we re-break out our social media and things like that, enjoy the pictures of the children and the moms and all that stuff, because they inspire me and they may inspire you as well.
Oh, wonderful. So could you repeat where we could find you again? You said Facebook and...
Well, the website is 𝐺medical.org.
Okay.
𝐺medical.org. And then we're rebuilding as we've changed from Peace Possible to that. So we'll be on Instagram and all those things. And we'll have those on the website that you connect to and do all of that. So we're going to be doing some live Facebook Lives now from Iraq, from our charitable organizations, from all those things. And those will be on probably my personal Facebook a little bit initially, just Decker Weiss, Dr. Decker Weiss, and they'll be on a few things. So it's really neat if you want to see what a refugee camp is like, really what it's like. If you want to see what people who don't get the luxury of being in a refugee camp live like when they're displaced, which we'll do a lot of. And if you want to just really, there's plenty of sad. Anybody could show sad. They're not interested in being seen sad. They want to show you what they're doing, and they want to show you what they're doing positive. They want to show you where they're going. And so I will show you things that are so inspiring. And if you're ever a little bit down on the world, come take a look at our social media a little bit. You will be, wow, that's amazing. And if you want to read about one of my patients that did real well, read a book called The Last Girl by Nadia Murad. She is a Nobel Prize winner. I had the honor of treating her in a small area in De Hoek. She made her way up to Germany, led war crimes trials against very, very dangerous people, and then decided to write about it and be public. Not only that, but she was ineligible to get married because she had had premarital sex because of what happened to her in her own Yazidi population. She sat with the male Yazidi elders and said, rape is not sex. And they took several thousand years of edict and reversed it based on her. So these are these strong people, these women that when they reverse and they get healthy, look out, they've got power. They are powerful and they are humble and they are ready to go. So not only did they go after the bad people, they changed their own culture. Hundreds and hundreds of girls were ineligible to get married ever. And she got married and she's doing real well.
Oh my gosh. Dr. Weiss, you are so inspiring, and I love to hear about everything you're doing and inspiring others and hearing the legacy that you've created that lives on and all of these incredible stories and people that you've touched. So thank you so much. Thank you from 𝐬𝐿, and we appreciate you so much. So, and everyone, thanks for joining us today. Have a beautiful rest of your day.